Okay, it says an error occurred. So here we go. We are live. All right, we are live. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live. We're so happy to be here. We thank our audience for joining us today. And I'm Michelle Beauchamp. My company is called the Champ Group. And what I love is partnering with organizations and individuals to help them with their professional and personal development, typically in the areas of leadership and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're super excited. We're going to get started. I'm going to introduce you to our guests. And let me just thank you for coming. You are those of you who are in the audience, you are going to be fortunate that you came because you're going to get some good tools and tips on how to lead diverse teams. Our topic is achieve unity to unlock the gateway to lead diverse teams. So that title, it says a lot. Welcome, Corey Sanford. Welcome, Linda Fisk. I am so excited. Corey, I've had the opportunity and the good fortune to partner with you and the folks at Guidant Financial in your diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and you've done some amazing things. So we're going to talk about that. Help our audience understand, though, who is Corey Sanford and what does he do?
Thanks, Michelle. It's great to be here. So, I am a self professed human resources nerd, and I just love all things human resources and seeing people be successful at work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I am currently in the head of people at Guidant Financial, and I also am an instructor for Cornell University in one of their master's programs and some of their certificate programs, and love both right now.
Awesome. And like you were telling me that, and it's like, and I know you have 3 kids, so you don't get a lot of sleep. I don't think, Corey. I don't think you get a lot of sleep, but that's awesome. So thank you again for saying yes, Corey. And Linda, I have the privilege and honor of being in your group, Leadership Global, and I know you're all about helping women succeed. So tell us just a little bit more about what it is you do, Linda.
As you said, Michelle, I have the honor and privilege of being the CEO of Leadership Global, and it is a global community of women in leadership that are really dedicated to advancing their definition of success, whatever that looks like. And so we provide the resources and the tools and the connections and the introductions and the funding and the media platforms like this to help women raise their visibility, extend their influence, and really advance and accelerate their success. And so I want to thank you, Michelle, for giving both Corey and I this platform to talk about such an important conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you. And what we want to do is give a shout out to those of you who are in the audience right now. So there's a place for you to comment. So go ahead and put a comment in there. Who are you? Are you here? Tell us where you're from so that we can give you a shout out. And we do want to encourage you to, as we go through our program and our content, to be sure put comments in there. If you have questions for us, you have the ability to do that, and let us know who you are, so we can say hey and give you a shout out. Okay. So with that, what I'm going to do is start by talking about dimensions of diversity. There are so many. So we're talking about leading diverse teams. Now, as we know, Corey and Linda, as common understanding that people have of diversity is, race, age, and gender. I would say those are, popular ones, things that people think of first. But there are some other ones, and it's so important for leaders to understand all of the different dimensions so that we can lead diverse teams and learn how to appreciate our differences. So in addition to gender, race, and age, there's religion. That's a big diversity dimension. Gender identity is important, sexual orientation, generational, right? We are in a phase now where we have so many generations, from baby boomers like myself to Gen Xers to millennials to now Gen Zers, all of us working together with different values, different beliefs. So we have that going on for sure. And then we have people with disabilities. And thank goodness we have much clearer understanding now about the various disabilities, hidden and visible, that people have so that we can help everyone feel belong. So that is the important thing that we're going to talk about. And Corey, I'm going to start with you, because one of the things that I know about Guidant Financial is that your co-founder, David Nielsen, told you from early on that he wanted Guidant to be the most diverse company in the whole state of Idaho. That's a bold and courageous statement.
Sure
So,
is.
so what tell us more about that. How did you get started with that initiative?
Sure. So Guided Financial was founded originally in Bellevue, Washington. They were opening an office in Idaho, and that's when I joined the team back in 2019. And that's what he told me then in 2019. And there are recent census data that shows Idaho is 93% white, for example. There's a lot of homogeny in Idaho, at least racially. But David really wanted to be a very diverse organization, and so he said, "Hey, let's be an example and a leader here." And so we were really highly aligned with that. My personal motto is I'm infinitely optimistic about the potential of people.
Ooh,
And
that's a good motto. Say that again. Say that again.
I'm infinitely optimistic about the potential of people. And I believe that the workplace should be a place where people can be their best, do their best, and feel their best. And so at Guidant, we know that as a service business, people are our competitive advantage. And so that belonging is a key ingredient to just leveraging and engaging the workforce, and diversity brings out the best ideas. And so the first thing that we did is we wanted to make sure that we were genuinely representing our intentions and feelings about diversity and inclusion and belonging in our core values and in our guiding principles, which are behaviors that help us live those values. And second, we want to be able to measure ourselves. Measuring culture it can be challenging. And so I have always thought of culture, there's lots of different ways to measure it, or think about it, but I like to think of culture as connection to company purpose and direction, connection to leaders, especially your direct supervisor, and then connection to each other. And so with that sort of lens, we measure ourselves through that connection, but we also try to offer a menu of opportunities through each of those sort of connection opportunities to create this diversity, create this belonging, create the connection. And so we've taken on a number of, I could list a bunch of options or ways that we've done that. But we started philosophically around what do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? And how are we going to measure our success? And so happy to share a few examples if you'd like, Michelle, of things that we've tried to do to bring out that connection.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to get to that too, because I know some of the people listening, that's what they're trying to figure out. So we're gonna get back to that. But I love your motto. And also what I also appreciate is the fact that you started off with your principle, your guiding principle. And it sounds so much, and I know for sure from experience that you value people, right? And when you value people, then the work is done in an excellent manner, and people feel like they belong and they feel appreciated. And so I appreciate that. And make sure you tell David, shout out to him for having that vision, right? Because it started with his vision, and in a state where there wasn't much diversity in terms of race anyway, then that was a bold statement. And we do have several people who are tuned in who let us know they were here. So we got Fred and Trina and Gina and who else did we have? Fred and Trina and Gina and Mimi. Yeah, we've got lots of people who said that they're on. So we applaud you for being here, because here's one thing we know, right? Everybody's busy. And one thing we know about you being here is that you're not too busy to discover how to elevate your team and grow and learn yourself. So we definitely appreciate that. So go ahead and feel free to comment as we're going through. So Corey, thank you for that. And kind of along with that, Linda, I'm going to ask you, because what Corey was talking about, important to measure, right? And sometimes that's a challenge, is measuring our success. It's not so hard to measure the diversity part of it, but sometimes it's harder to measure the belonging and inclusion part of it, right? So Linda, what is your experience? What do you do, and what do you recommend people do to strengthen our bonds, to unify us beyond our differences?
I love that question. Thank you so much, Michelle. And as Corey said, relationships are a really powerful part of who we are. They can make us feel like we belong, like we have something to contribute to the world. They can strengthen us. They give us reason to affect change. But more importantly, they also give us the reason to be changed. And it's often difficult to connect with people when we may not understand their background. So the question is, how do we learn to interact respectfully and knowledgeably with all the people in our lives who exist perhaps outside of our inner circle, people whose culture or worldview is really far removed from our own? How do we see those differences as opportunities to strengthen our bond as humans? In my mind, that comes down to this idea of cultural competency.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's the ability to understand, communicate, and effectively interact with people across cultures. In Leadership Global, we are a community that is truly global. We have women in Africa and Europe and Australia, New Zealand, South America, North America, and we come from very different backgrounds, different socioeconomic strata. We come from different religions, different sexual orientation, different views about those things.
It's a
And
lot of
cultural,
differences.
yeah. And cultural competence is when you become aware of your own worldview, which sometimes happens best in a community that's very diverse, in a community that encompasses lots of worldviews. So being aware of your own perspective, your own worldview, to me is step number one. And
Mm-hmm.
then step number two is to be in relationship with others that represent something different from what we are, and
Mm-hmm.
developing those positive attitudes towards those cultural differences, really getting to know people and asking questions. That's interesting. Why do you believe that? And what was it like growing up in those kinds of circumstances? And how has that shaped who you are today? Gaining knowledge from different cultural practices and worldviews, I think, allows us to develop skills for communication and interaction across cultures that can begin to break down the barriers and create a better sense of understanding. So cultural kind of proficiency, if you will, that kind of requires more than just being culturally aware or practicing tolerance. It's really the ability to identify and challenge your own cultural assumptions, your own values and beliefs, and make a commitment to communicating with others at that cultural intersection.
You said a lot there. And you know what I hear you saying too is it really starts with people making up their mind, right? I mean, if we make up our mind that we're going to learn, because you talked about the importance of asking people questions instead of judging, they might do something different than what we did or what we were brought up to do. And so understanding, asking questions help me understand what's behind that. Why do you do that? Rather than making judgments about it. And that's what I hear you saying is that we have to make up our mind. Let's just proclaim that right now, that everybody can just make up their mind to learn about other people, not make judgments about them, but embrace it, right? Because it is all about
Yeah, and
embracing.
it's about having an attitude of curiosity
Yep.
and being very open about what you don't know. I remember the
Yes.
very first time I saw someone with a headdress. I didn't know the cultural significance of that. So I asked,
There you
what does that mean to you? And what's the significance of this? Is it just a beautiful headdress, or is there some meaning here that I should be aware of? And it gave me an opportunity to learn, but also gave the other person an opportunity to explain the meaning, the significance, the importance of the way that she was wearing her hair and her headdress, right? It was such a beautiful exchange where she got to be proud of her culture, her ancestry, and the meaning of that particular way that she was dressed and the way that she presented herself. And it gave me an opportunity to really learn. And I think being able to openly and very honestly have an attitude of curiosity where we just ask, gosh, that's so interesting. Now, why do you think that? Why do you believe that? What in your background gave you that determination, that vision, that mission, And I think that that's beautiful, having that kind of exchange.
Oh, it totally is. It's very and you had to be bold and courageous to ask that question too, right? But you were curious, so it really didn't take that much courage because you naturally wanted to know. You were trying to understand. And that actually brings me to our next thing we wanted to talk about, which is sensitivity and awareness, right? And when we have sensitivity, like that's something different that they do. I want to understand more, so I'm going to ask questions and therefore become more aware of it. And then that helps us to become more empathetic. And speaking of which, we don't want to forget that right now we're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Awareness Month, right? So this is an opportunity for us to become more sensitive to the culture, understand some of the traditions And personally, I love good food, so I always love this as an opportunity for me to eat more of the food from the Hispanic culture. And so, it's just important for us to understand other people, because that's what's going to help us unify. And this is all about unity, isn't it? And so, as we talk about sensitivity and awareness and empathy, um, Corey, as we prepared, you mentioned something that I think was really interesting, and some things that you do. And I do want you to go ahead and share a little bit more about so many things that you do. But one thing that you do, when you're having events at Guidant Financial, is you make sure that you all know how to pronounce people's names correctly. And that is so important, because, I've had people tell me that sometimes people could not pronounce their name. So they were just told, you know what, your name is too hard for me to pronounce, so I'm just going to call you this. Like, okay, that is not cultural competence, is it, Linda? Right? That's just so wrong. So Corey, tell us a little bit more about what you all do to help encourage more empathy. You have so many different events that you do. Tell
Yep.
us more about that.
Yeah, a couple of things that we do, and I'll speak to the first one. So every Monday we have a Monday morning stand up with rotating host of senior leaders, and that's the time where we celebrate and educate the team on business goals. We welcome new team members. We celebrate promotions and anniversaries. And one thing that we do is offboarding. Having a good offboarding experience is just as important to me as having a good onboarding experience. And so anybody that's exiting the organization, we want to make sure that we celebrate and thank them for their service at Guidant, regardless of the role or their length of service. And so that's, I think, a sensitivity and awareness to thank them for that and have them leave feeling like they've made a contribution to Guidant. And then in those meetings, it's really important to me, and we're not perfect because we have rotating hosts, but it is important that we learn and understand the pronunciation of people's names. We have some beautiful names in our company. We have an individual in the Philippines named Encyclopedia. She goes by NC. And so with us being an international and diverse organization, we have some very unique names. But a name is one of the most important things to us. And so we really invest in making sure we know what they want to be called and that we address them that way appropriately. A couple of other quick things that we do that I think brings a level of sensitivity is we offer floating holidays. This is a perfect way, 2 floating holidays a year. This is a perfect way for somebody that says, hey, Veterans Day is really important to me, or Martin Luther King Jr. Day, or I celebrate Hanukkah or Good Friday. Floating holidays is a way to say, hey, we can all be equal in having these floating holidays, and then we can use them in a way that's most meaningful to us. Also for onboarding, we know it can be scary to start a new job. And so everybody that joins the team, we try to hire in cohorts. So they're starting with somebody else that is also joining the company. And then everybody's assigned a partner in crime that they meet with every day. So and that's the person they can say, wait, how are they related? Or what is that again? Or when's payday? Or the things that they might be a little bit nervous about asking, we sort of open that up, being aware and sensitive to the feelings that they might be having joining a new company, a new team. So those are a few things that we do at Guidant. I will say, to gather sensitivity and awareness, the most powerful question that I have learned to ask is, can I get your advice? That's a very powerful and an empowering question that we sort of ask. And when we get people's advice, that's when we get ideas about how to evolve, change, how do we do events. And we offer some of these, it's a long list that I haven't shared, but a lot of these things have come because we've said, can we get your advice on something? Can we get your perspective?
Wow.
To ask that of everybody when we're making decisions or tackling problems together, especially around something like this, around connection and culture.
That is powerful. I'm showing a comment here from HP Lee, but Corey, that's so awesome. And just really quickly on that point, what you're showing is that you don't have all the answers. Right? And you're counting on other people to help the company survive. So that's awesome. HP says diversity and inclusion should not just be a tagline in corporate recruitment strategies. Amen to that. We need to offer cultural anthropology courses in high school. Yes, HP. The earlier we can expose future leaders to our global melting pot, the better. Amen to that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, HP. That is so true. And here's another comment that I see. Finding cultural significance through asking questions. Yep. These types of open and honest conversations facilitate sensitivity, empathy, awareness, diverse groups. Yeah. So we've got a good interaction there from our audience, which I'm really happy about too. So on empathy, that word I think I heard more in 2020 than ever before. And the good news is that it's still happening, right? We know the importance of well-being, and we know the importance of empathy. And so um one couple things I like to share with people in terms of being empathetic. One is see their world, right? And so one the examples that you all have shared today, asking questions so that you can see their world. You haven't experienced it, and so that's why you want to ask questions so you can see their world. And here's another one: appreciate them as human beings. Those examples that I hear both of you talking about are that you appreciate people as human beings. You understand what you want to understand more what their culture is, what's behind it, so that you can appreciate it and carry that forward. And I think that's so important. And the other thing that we want to do is understand people's feelings, right? That because that's what empathy is all about. You haven't had that experience, but you want to understand what their feelings are. And then I want to talk to while we still have time, and then we can open it up. But today is Women's Business Day. And so, right, yay, right? We can't go without saying that on the day, right? That's when we're having our program on that day. And so I'd like to ask both of you, and Linda, I'm going to start with you. In terms of commanding deserved respect in relation to women right now, and then everybody. But Linda, since you lead mostly women, I know I've been on some of the calls, and there's a few men trickled there here and there, but it's mostly women. What kind of guidance do you give to women so to make sure that they command the deserved respect?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this organizationally and then individually really quickly. So we know that organizationally, research has proven over and over and again that executives at organizations with advanced diversity and inclusion strategies are about 30% more likely than other companies and other employees to feel loyal, to feel innovative, and to feel as though they're set up for top performance. And unfortunately, there are some companies that have diverted their focus away from diversity and inclusion as they grapple with some of the urgent issues during the pandemic and now after the pandemic, as we enter into a insecure financial future in many corporations. So they feel like with these new economic realities after the global pandemic, that there are more urgent questions that company needs to face than diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I will tell you, if organizations are not actively renewing their commitment to stamp out any form of inequity, any form of discrimination, they can expect to see inequities grow deeper and more insidious. So it is so critical that as an organization that we absolutely invest in the next generation of leaders, whether those leaders are women, men, people of color, people with disability, whoever is qualified to move that company to that next level of performance and success. They need to be lifted up. They need right now to be heard, to be listened to, and to be understood. And so in my mind, organizationally, women can help the companies that they work for in that they can demand a diversity, equity, inclusion movement, a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the other thing I would say is, as an individual, women tend to be less confident than most men. Now, I will tell you, confidence gives you the skills and the coping methods to handle setbacks, to handle failure. It doesn't mean you won't sometimes fail, but you'll know how to handle the challenges in front of you and not be crippled by them. So even when things don't turn out anywhere close to what you planned, you'll still be able to avoid beating yourself up. So in my mind, one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself is to really focus on building that sense of inner self-worth, that sense of worthiness and confidence. And I will tell you that it's important to keep in mind that's a process that can't be built overnight, but to really create the belief in yourself, to push your limits of your ability, to continue to try, even at the risk of public failure or humiliation. That is the gift that I would embed in every single woman to stand strong in knowing who she is, what she represents, what her principles are, and what her value is, and to be able to step boldly into that power. And if that means that you need to work with a coach to build that sense of self-worth, then do that.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, we have to recognize our power, right? And it sounds like you were saying the importance of self-talk. I mean, I hear so many people say, "Oh, I'm so stupid." No, don't say that, right? So we have to watch our self-talk. And I'm a big believer in affirmations, and because when we say it and we say it enough time, then we start to act as though it is, and then it is, right? And you remind me that John Maxwell, who I'm on his team, right? And one of the books he has is "Sometime you win, sometime you learn." And that's the whole point of it all. You try it, and if it works, yay, let's repeat that. If it doesn't, then okay, well, that didn't work.
And I so agree with that. Self-confidence is linked to almost every element involved in a happy and fulfilling life. And also, as a confident woman, you should be able to step into your workplace and demand respect and really help initiate and lead movements towards diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace so that everyone feels heard, feels valued, and feels worthwhile.
Yeah.
Can I add a couple? Can I add a couple of just really specific ways to implement that I enjoy? First is representation, right? Those are some actionable things that we can make sure that there is representation. Really proud of Guidant. We've recently added a woman to our previously all male board. Very excited about that, for example.
That's awesome, Corey.
Yeah, more to come. Yeah, more to come there. Other things, as I facilitate our weekly leadership team meeting, and a couple things that we do is we don't have a random like popcorn style raise your hand sort of comment. Everybody has a chance to speak. And making sure that women in particular aren't interrupted before they finish speaking is really important. And so in order, make sure everybody has a chance to speak, ask questions, share their perspective is really important. The other thing is making sure that everybody gets recognition for their contributions. And we have several ways to recognize people real time in our Monday morning meetings. We have cheers channels and things like that to recognize that. So I'd say representation, everyone has a chance to speak, and recognition is really, really important to implementing some of the great ideas that Linda has shared with us.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. And on that point of interruption, I recently saw a statistic that women are interrupted 28% time more than men. So the fact that you have that awareness and that you're taking the behaviors, right, to make sure that that's not happening, that's awesome. We only have about 3 more minutes, and we've had some good comments here. So I love it when our audience is engaged. So I want to share some of those. Let's see. Fred said, while a lot of companies might have deprioritized DEI per Linda, many more also moving forward with programs. And it looks like there was maybe more there, but so that's good to know, right? Fred, we're glad that you said that. And here's what we want is for the awareness to continue, and not only awareness, but action, right? For it to go from, we know we need to do this, but we don't know where to start. We know we need to do this. We're going to do it. We're going to learn along the way. We might make some mistakes, but it's all good, right? And so then let's see. Melissa said that she loves that. Can I get advice? She's going to use that. So that's good. And Fred has, I'm not sure when Fred talked about that.
It was in regards to today being the Women's Business Day.
Oh, there you go. See, that's why it's good you tuned in there. See, today is Women's Business Day. Thanks, Corey. Thanks. So before we wrap up then, is there anything else that you want to convey or to share with our audience before we wrap up?
Well, there were a couple things that you asked at the very end, Michelle, that I would just note, and I'm sure that Corey's already done these things, but if you feel as a woman that you'd like to be represented, as Corey suggested, you can develop a women's ERG in your workplace. You can work with management to set diversity, hiring, and promotion goals. You can help implement regular bias and stereotype training. You could establish anti-discrimination and sexual harassment policies for your company, and absolutely know the anti-discrimination laws within your state and federally. So those are just a couple ideas that, will help women feel, and all people, any group, feel as though they have a voice, they have the ability to move the organization forward and to make a real impact. And I would really suggest that if there is not an ERG in your workplace that represents you, either as a woman or a person of color, then ask for that. There's very few organizations that I know of that would absolutely say no.
Exactly, Linda. So thanks for those actionable items. And so our time is up already. And so Corey and Linda, I just want to thank you so much for all the value that you offered to our audience. Audience, we're so excited that you took the time out of your day to join us. And I'm sure you got some nuggets. So thank you for that. And should you have the desire to reach out to us, we put our contact information here because you know what, we just had 30 minutes and there's a lot to share. So I want to make sure that you have that information and you reach out to Corey Sanford at Guidance Financial and you reach out to Linda Fisk with Leadership Global, and you can reach out to me with the Champ Group. And with that, I'm going to conclude and just say that all of us have the power to make every person feel as though they matter. And with that, I'm going to thank you and end the call. Thank you so much. Corey and Linda, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me end the broadcast.